નમસ્કાર મિત્રો, આજનો જે આપણો સોનેરી સંગત કાર્યક્રમ છે, મારી પાસે પાયાની જરૂરિયાત છે. કૌટિલ્ય અર્થશાસ્ત્રમાં વિધાન કર્યું છે આચાર્ય કે અર્થતંત્ર એ સંસ્કૃતિ માટે પાયાની જરૂરિયાત છે. નાણાંની સમજ મેળવવા, વાપરવા, બચાવવા એ આજનો સબ્જેક્ટ છે. અને એનો આજે મુખ્ય આપણા જે મહેમાન છે અલ્પેશભાઈ પટેલ, મારે એમને અલ્પેશભાઈ કહેવા પડે કેમ કે મારા બહુ જૂના મિત્ર છે. અલ્પેશ એક મુઠ્ઠી ઊંચારો માણસ છે. એનું વતન કરમસદ છે. એને સનાતન ધર્મ બહુ શ્રદ્ધા છે. અને એક નાનો પ્રસંગ કહું. યુ અન્ડરસ્ટેન્ડ ગુજરાતી, સરદુલ?
Yes, yes.
I will try because I will be bilingual. In 92 or 93, there was a major campaign about retaining Hare Krishna temple in Watford open for darshan. The local council, the British government, the UK Supreme Court, the UK highest court, and the European Court of Justice, they all say that this temple shall close down. But I believe in faith. I believe in fair play. There was a campaign. I was assigned by the ISKCON people, the GBC. CB Patel was general of the campaign. And we were running a campaign completely non-violent, completely peaceful, not even a slogan which was having. And in that campaign, we were really struck up because the government in London and Hershmere was of one party, conservative, and at that time there are different understanding of Sanatan values and Hindus. One of the things we were doing was fasting in front of the main political parties around Westminster. So we had 7 people on average fasting 24 hours, non-hours in front of the Conservative Party, Labour Party, Lib Dem Party. And in that issue of New Life, there was a letter published by New Life, written by Alpesh Patel. The background was, I got in those days, there was no email or anything. In the post, I got a letter from Oxford Oriel College. I know what is Oriel College. And I saw it, it's beautiful letterhead. And the letter was written by somebody called Alpesh Patel. Very well argued that the temple shall not be closed down. So it was published prominently. And in the morning, when the people were going around walk in that area near Parliament, I was there at about 6:37. And one Mr. William Rees Mogg was walking along Alpesh Bhai. He was the editor of the Times paper. I did not know who is this elderly Englishman. And you know, I'm a very shy person. I went to him. I said, sir, what are you doing here? Because they were surprised to see some people in the Bhagwas, women, all men. So I explained about the campaign and gave copy of the New Life. He read the paper and he wrote a big article, Alpesh, in the Times. Look at the archives, that the temple shall remain open. So this is Alpesh Patel. You have done so much favor. He is from Karamsad, as I said. He's a very, for us, Alpesh is a godsend gift. He's a Vaishnava. I know his wife and son. I won't personalize. He's a very big man in money making, money saving, taxation, all legal. People sometimes make money, but there are various ways to spend the money or to retain the money or to invest money. So, Alpesh Bhai, આજે નસીબદાર છું કે આજે અમારા પૂજાબેન અમારી ઓફિસના સર્વ પ્રકારની જવાબદારી સંભાળે છે. પૂજાબેન, આજે ઓડિયન્સ બી બહુ સારું છે. 15 મિનિટમાં 30-32 માણસ આવી ગયા. બહુ મોટું કહેવાય ઝૂમમાં. આ ઝૂમ પ્રોગ્રામ, I'll say in English now, Soneri Sangat is a Zoom program. Started last year. This is your program. People have various topics we talk. It is available everywhere, but we also prepare YouTube. And now thousands, if not many thousand people read it. So Alpesh Bhai, thank you for saving the time. Pooja Ben, you are our main commander-in-chief. She has arranged together Alpesh Bhai some eminent young people from Copenhagen, like this gentleman, I forgot the name.
Shardul Dave.
Shardul Dave. Then Jack Sarawal, he's her son, brilliant son. I know him for many, many years. So now, ભાઈઓ બહેનો આજનો પ્રોગ્રામ અંગ્રેજીમાં કે ગુજરાતીમાં જેને જે ભાષા બોલવી હોય પૂછજો. અલ્પેશભાઈ, you can say in Gujarati or English because this is a generation bridge building. Money is very important. And I'm so happy that all of you are here. Srijit Bhai, thank you very much for coordinating. And Alpesh Bhai, sparing your valuable time. And give my apologies to your son and your wonderful wife, parents and parents-in-law. Thank you very much. Jai Bharat.
Thank you, CB. Before I allow Pooja to take over, thank you so much. Very kind words, but you've been the inspiration and the role model. The reason I wrote that letter, I was at St. Anne's, not Oriel. The Oriel's a fine college. Was because the newspaper and the campaign that it did, your generation were the ones who told us, taught us, showed us how we should be. And we just pass on what we saw. And I only reflected, I was only a mirror to what you've done. I'm 0.0001% of what you've done for the community, CB, because you've raised and helped so many of us because of the paper. And it's incredible. So it's actually all thanks to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alpesh Bhai. We'll start, from the prayer. Maya Ben Deepak will, do the prayer first, and then after we'll just go further to this program. Yeah.
એક સરસ મજાનું ભજન રજૂ કરું છું. મળી છે કાયા માનવની જગતમાં ધૂપ સળી થાજો સુગંધી અન્યને દેવા તમે જાતે જલી જાજો. મળી છે કાયા માનવની जगतमा राम भक्त तई जगे साचु रणी जाजो मणि छु काया मानवनी जगतमा दूसरी बाजो सुगंधी अन्यने देवा तवे जाते जनी जाजो जगतमा दूसरी बाजो जगतमा दूसरी बाजो जगतमा दूसरी આભાર.
ખૂબ જ સરસ માયાબેન, થેન્ક યુ સો મચ આટલી સરસ પ્રાર્થના રજૂ કરવા માટે. થેન્ક યુ સો મચ. Now I will start with the introduction of Alpesh bhai. Alpesh bhai ને કોઈ introduction ની જરૂર નથી. સીબી સર હમણાં જ એમના વિશે ઘણું આપણને કહ્યું. પણ તો પણ થોડું ઘણું હું અલ્પેશ ભાઈ વિશે કહીશ. Alpesh bhai is one of the most successful investor and entrepreneur mentors in the world, pursuing a mission to teach people to make money to solve big world problems. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Alpesh bhai Patel, a visiting fellow at Oxford University, CEO, and a celebrated financial authority. He has been recognized by Channel 4 as the UK's best known online trader and by the Financial Times as a top FTSE 100 forecaster. His extensive experience includes roles as a regulated fund manager, as a deal maker for the UK government, where he has excelled in sourcing global tech solutions. A prolific author and speaker, Mr. Alpesh bhai Patel has authored 18 books and presented at over 500 conferences worldwide. He is also a dedicated mentor, co-founding the UK chapter of Thai.org. His media presence includes hosting shows on Bloomberg TV and CNBC, and contributing as a Financial Times columnist. As his BBC paper review for 10 plus years to 300 million shows. He awarded an OBE in 2020 for his contribution to the economy and international trade. Mr. Patel continues to impact the field through his initiative, campaignformillion.com. With that said, please welcome Mr. Alpesh bhai Patel. Alpesh bhai Patel, thank you so much for joining us today. અને તમે
Thank
તમારો
you.
વેલ્યુએબલ ટાઈમ નિકાળી અને અમારી સાથે જોડાયા એના માટે ખૂબ ખૂબ આભાર તમારો.
Thank you. I have given interviews in Gujarati before on CNBC and other channels, but I better speak in English as much as possible, only because I've just sent a message on Telegram and LinkedIn and other social media to people who are probably non-Gujarati speakers as well. But thank you, and thank you for your kind words. And again, for CB's kind words. He really has been an inspirational role model for my generation, and hopefully my son's generation, my son who is only 6 years old, but that generation as well. So it's my pleasure to be here. Would you believe 30 minutes ago, I was in Piccadilly. I managed to cycle to West London in just 30 minutes. So if I'm a little bit out of breath and I'm sort of wiping my brow, it's not because of the questions. It's because of partly the heat and partly the lack of physical exercise I'm getting.
We can understand that. Thank you. Thank you. So as you know, today's purpose of this event is to provide our readers and the wider community with the opportunity to learn and gain valuable insight from you about relevant financial topics and apply the information to your day-to-day lives. I have a few questions for you, Alpesh bhai, and then we'll be asking the questions to the audience. If they have any questions, they can just definitely ask you later on. So I'll start with my first question. You speak a lot about pensions and savings. What do people not know that worries you?
Good.
Myself. Sorry about that. It's a funny thing, but as I've got older, I've been thinking more about pensions as well, because I mean, you can see some of the books I've written over my shoulder. And over the last 25 years, having spoken to, I don't know, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people from, and you read out my biography earlier, from Bloomberg TV to the Financial Times, lots of readers coming in, Asian Voice, my column there. I think when I went to CB's home, he reminded me, I think my column's now been there for 20 years at least, if not longer, maybe 25 years in Asian Voice, every single week, my financial column. So people write in, or they will email me, or they'll write to the newspaper. And what I've noticed over that period is that there's a large number of people who have just ignored their pensions. And I don't mean they haven't saved enough money. I mean that they might have just trusted it to a fund manager or a wealth manager. And then when the years have gone by, 5 years have gone, 10 years have gone, they've looked at it and they've said, my God, I've got a very little return. And this particularly isn't just the problem in the broader British community. I've got people from the United States, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. This is a global problem. But also when you think about, if we take it to our own community as well, the British Indian community, and I will broaden it out because I know there are people from outside of there on this and will be watching it. We're renowned for being hardworking. So if you've been spending your whole life working incredibly hard, and as I say, when I went to CB's house, he's still working. I mean, he works harder than I do, okay? And I am at least 20 years younger, though I think he's 20 years younger than me. But it is a role model in our community. You know, we work and we consider work God-given. You know how it is culturally. It is, if you are given work, you are blessed. And if ever I were to say to my mom, oh, I'm tired, or anything else, she would say to me, well, no, you're blessed because you've got work. And so if you spent your whole life working, speaking of which, at my desk, I have my Ganesh. And this is the thing, when I go to India and I go to the offices, what I love is you will see the Ganesh is at the entrance of the office. No big deal made about any of it. I have my Krishna to look after me as well, with his makhan, and and because my grandmother, who CB knows, my late grandmother, would tell me stories of little Krishna and how he'd be very, very naughty. But if we spent our lives working and we're not seeing the returns we should from the investments, that was increasingly worrying me. And that's actually why I was writing the column to begin with. Plus, also, as an enterprising community, as an entrepreneurial community, we've always been willing to look at other ways of growing our wealth. There's no conflict. I mean, I don't have Lakshmi Ji on my desk, but I could have. There is no conflict between aspiring for growing wealth, Seva, which CB does, and the newspaper is a campaigning newspaper. I remember him telling me about 14, 15 years ago, he summed it up. He said, this is a campaigning newspaper, which is actually the best of journalism, because if you look at the things which changed the world from the world of journalism, it's the campaigns. It's not the tittle tattle. It's not what you know, what's the royal family doing this morning and all the rest of it, just, you know, and what happened on TV yesterday. Those things, fascinating though they are, and we all need to relax with a bit of gossip, I'm sure, and all those things. But when you're working hard, you want those people to be earning and making the most of their money. So I've just tried to increase that education, whether it's been through the books or through the column in the newspaper every week. And I have to say, and CB probably doesn't know this, I've sometimes written that column on an airplane, or now they have Wi-Fi on a plane. I have written it on a beach. I have written it on my holidays. That's not because I know they expect me to send them and I don't want to let down the editorial team, but because I love what I do and I want people to share that passion of investing so that they too can make their money go further. And it then, of course, benefits the community. And I think one of the easiest ways somebody like me can benefit the community, I mean, CB with the newspaper can benefit the community by saving temples, like the Watford Munder. But I thought to myself, well, how does somebody like me help the community? And there's no point me walking down the street with placards because it's one person. And whilst one person can make a difference, the way I could leverage it was through the voice of the newspaper to give people financial education, because that's the other thing about our community. Education, whether it's Saraswati or through Ganesh, is considered one of the highest aspirations we could have. And so education about wealth provided me with no conflict and a higher purpose. And it made it clear to me that actually, if I've got the mouthpiece of a newspaper column, what better thing to write about, but with more purpose, about investing, pensions, and how people should look at what is their pension doing. I say to them, just start off with looking at what is it doing? What are the returns? And then asking yourself, or at least asking whoever's managing it, could it be better? Or go online and say, well, how do I set up a pension or an ISA? Just a small step, and hopefully that'll take things further for people. So that's how it all started, and that was the bigger purpose behind it. And also, as you get older, you're looking for more purpose in life than just simply making money. I always joke, and I think CB's heard me say this, that I'm a teetotal vegetarian. What am I going to spend money on? Who likes riding bikes? I hate drive. I've given one car to my dad, one to my uncle, and one to my wife. I have a bicycle. And in London, if you know central London, which I'm sure you do, it is the only useful means of transport. You do not, on a hot day like today, want to be in the tube. You probably don't want to be on a bus because it's slow, but the bicycle ride into central London was just beautiful. And so what are you going to spend your money on? You might as well teach other people how to just shore up their life and have that little bit of protection there as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alpesh bhai. My second question is, how did you get into investing?
Yeah. Well, this is I think it's a fascinating story, and I hope people watching this, whether they are young or old, whether they are grandparents or grandchildren, will take a leaf out of my book on this. So when I was 12 years old, I, like many of your viewers, many of your listeners, had parents who worked incredibly hard. And CB knows the story of not just my parents and my grandparents, but the story of our whole community, which came here. And you will know that the generation before has worked a hell of a lot harder than certainly I ever do. I don't work anywhere near as hard as my parents have had to work. And so when I was 12 years old and I was going to school, I thought to myself, well, I was feeling very guilty that I need to do something. What can I do to help out? All I'm doing is studying, which is good enough. That motivated me to do two things. One is to make sure I came top of my class in every exam and got straight A's and all the rest of it. And it took a bit of time, but it happened, and got the prizes and the awards and everything else, just because I knew how hard they were working. The other thing it did was I said to myself, well, and it was in the middle of the 1980s, and you're too young to know the 1980s. You're probably too young to know the 1990s, but in the 1980s, the biggest thing that was going on was the Cold War. And it amazed me that the world could come to an end on nuclear annihilation because a German man sitting in a British library, the British Library, wrote what now over 100 years ago was a book, Das Kapital, the Communist Manifesto, which gave rise to the USSR, to communism, which came eyeball to eyeball with the West and Western liberal democratic values. And these two ideologies were about to nuke each other. Okay. So what became clear was, so I thought to myself, well, what on earth is this man? What has he written? What has Karl Marx written which could end the world? I mean, many books have been written where people who read them believe in the ideology so strongly that they want to kill everybody else. But these people want to kill themselves as well. I mean, that nuclear annihilation is mutually assured destruction. So I looked into it. I didn't read the whole book. I was only 12. I looked into, I don't know, I found a summary somewhere. And it talked about how badly the workers are treated and how the people with capital make the excess profits. You work for them, they take the profits, they give you enough to survive on. Your work that you're paid for is worth more than you're paid. Otherwise, the capital couldn't get a profit. And I thought, well, I don't think I want to be a worker if that's how they're treated. And I gave this talk 2 years ago at Eton College. And Eton is, of course, the prestigious school. And somebody put their hand up and said, that's what you got from the book? You didn't want to be a worker? You didn't get revolution? I said, no, I didn't want to be a worker. I knew I needed to be capital. So I thought, well, what's capital? Well, it means owning shares in stuff. So I thought, well, I'll borrow £100 from my aunt, which I did. And we used to live opposite a post office. Actually, CB knows the road, Standingley Road in Leeds. We lived opposite a post office, and they had all these free leaflets about investing your money, saving your money in bonds, government bonds. So I bought £100 worth of government bonds, and a few months later, I got, I don't know, £104 back. I thought, this is great. I can go to school, help my family out because I can earn money. Then when the privatizations happened, that's how I got into it even more, because it meant I could do something else. This is what I mean about pensions. You can do something else. You have your day job, you spend time with your family, whatever. And all these clever people in these companies, whether those companies are Microsoft or in those days it was British Telecom and National Power and PowerGen in the late 80s. For a while it was BP and all of this. And they could work really hard for you while you're at school and make you money. I thought, this is great. I don't even need to sort of do the work myself or even invent something or think of something. So don't get me wrong. There is a negative side to sort of being a professional investor is you're not the one inventing Microsoft. You're just riding on their coattails, which, okay, isn't, I'm not going to get the Nobel Prize in economics or physics or chemistry anytime soon. But that's the downside. The upside is it blew my mind that I could help my family and so on. And so that's how it all started. Subsequently, when I went to university, I was working in the US Congress for a semester for Congressman Elliot Engel. And at that time, in the mid-90s, when I was working in Congress, the internet, 1994, had just become popular in America. So I was lucky I was in Washington. So when I got back to the UK, the Financial Times asked me, they said, could you write something about investing and the internet? Because you seem to know about the internet. And if you remember Britain in the 1990s, mid-1990s, nobody had heard of the internet in 95. But they had in America, it had become this big thing. So that led me into the financial world and writing more about finance. And then in the newspaper, and the Financial Times picked up the column and said, look, we want you to write in the Financial Times a weekly column on your investing. When I wrote the book, and this is an important life lesson, I think, for all of us. And I think CB will agree. As you get older, you realize so much of life is good luck. You might call it luck. You might call it fate. You might call it, as I do, God's good grace. As I say to my wife each evening when I come in home, and whatever's happened that day with her, with my son, and so on, I do remind her, make sure you say your prayers, because it's by God's good grace that we're so fortunate. And every day we try and remind ourselves. But whether you want to call it God or whether you want to call it luck, whether it's chance or destiny, I was fortunate that when I wrote the book, the head of television at CNN, when CNN interviewed me, the global head of television at Bloomberg was watching CNN. And she called up the next day, or got her assistant to call up, and asked if I'd like my own TV show. So that's got me more into finance. And people often ask me on LinkedIn and everywhere else, how do I get a career in this, that, or the other? And I say to them, well, a lot of it may well be chance or putting yourself in a position to be lucky. And I've given quite a few talks at various schools. Last week, I was at Charterhouse School. where the head of entrepreneurship is a Captain Sandeep Patel. He's an old friend of mine, and he asked me, so I did it. And he teaches entrepreneurship to these young students. And I said to them, I said, you know, occasionally go for the long shots, the 1 in a million, where I wrote to the world's leading traders and said, look, if you agree to be interviewed, then the Financial Times will publish the book. And I said to the Financial Times, if you publish the book, these traders will agree to be interviewed. And it worked. It's a long shot. And I think if you want to put yourself in a position to be lucky, do the long shots, as well as the regular stuff. Send the 100 applications. Like CB, I trained as a barrister. I'm not sure if he was at Lincoln's Inn, which is my old inn. But I had to write 100 letters. I got 98 rejections to various barristers' chambers. And it was the starting point of realizing maybe finance rather than law is what I should focus on. And after I qualified as a barrister and I had my very first case in Bow County Court, that's when I definitely realized the money's a heck of a lot better in finance than it is in law. So that's a very long-winded arc of the backstory, but hopefully with some career advice in there as well. Long shots, lots and lots of applications, and that'll open you up to being in a position of bringing more luck and good fortune into your life. And it's only one or two lucky things snowball. The Bloomberg TV stuff snowballs into co-hosting CNBC. Now, those things mattered to me. Then that snowballed, that profile snowballed into the UK government asking me to, as you described, being one of the government deal makers, which I still am for the last 20 years, because of profile. And I tell young people now, make sure, you know, we live in a social media age, make sure you do write well. And the newspaper gave me my first printed column. I mean, it's CB's fault that I started writing and never stopped. I got a column in the newspaper before I ever got my first book deal, before I ever got the column in the Financial Times. And it was in the newspaper. And when he published that letter he was talking to you about from when I was at university about the Mandir, that was it. I saw my name in print. And this is what I mean about, I'm that much. Now imagine how much he's done through a newspaper over the decades. And it is awe-inspiring. It is gobsmacking, the standard. Can you imagine? I mean, there's pictures of him with Margaret Thatcher, Dennis Healy, Jim Callahan, I'm sure with Ted Heath as well. I'm absolutely sure. I'm not sure, CB, you ever met Macmillan. We'd be going back a bit too far. But, you know, that inspiration that you see in the community. So that's the other thing I'd say. Surround yourself with people of a caliber at least 10 to 100 times higher than you. Find a way. When I wrote to the newspaper, that put me in CB's universe such that the paper would ask me, will you do this? Have you thought about this? Would you come to this? Invite to this? I mean, I've hosted events at the Houses of Parliament with Home Secretaries, thanks to Asian Voice, because I was in that universe of a caliber 100 times bigger than me, which elevates you. And I was lucky to be in those places. But I'd say to people, I'd give that advice, whatever age you are, put yourself in those positions. Luckily, the paper does lots of events. Go to those events, attend those events. And they're usually in Parliament. I know we've got an RAF one coming up, which is also in Parliament. Getting out there. And by the way, I'm an introvert, contrary to what people might think. So even the introverts here who might think, no, that's not for me. You know, it's all right for you. You know, when I was 12, 13, 14, I used to think, no, it's all right for you. It's easy for you. But for me, it's different. I'm all the way up in Leeds. And, you know, I don't know anybody. My family doesn't know anybody. And they're not in finance. They're not in law. And then, yeah, it's all right for you. It's all right for you. No, you got to have, CB mentioned Karamsad, have a bit of that attitude, which is only the best is good enough. I think that's the Karamsad attitude. That and we're the best, which is also a very Karamsad attitude. Forgive me.
Thank you so much, Alpesh. Actually, my third question was related to, I think you almost answered that question. Why did you leave a law? And what advice for younger people? Like, if you have any younger people to find somebody. So,
like I said, I've been lucky enough more recently to give a lot of talks at various schools. And I would say people always say follow your passion. Well, there's no point following your passion if it can't earn money, because I'm afraid money is important. I don't mean lots of money. The studies show from Harvard Business School show that after you get above a certain amount of money, increasing it doesn't increase your happiness. In fact, it makes a very small marginal increase to the point it then tips into making you increasingly unhappy. And if you think about where somebody goes from working, say, 50 hours a week to trying to work 100 hours, you can imagine the money increases, but their happiness decreases. So the optimal level they discovered in the West for the United States and probably for the UK is, believe it or not, about $150,000. And you might say, well, that's a heck of a lot, by the way. And of course, that means you've got to have some savings. My point is, it's not millions. People think it's millions you need. And I know getting to 150 is a lot for a lot of people because many people are hand to mouth. But the point is, it's not stupid sums of money. Therefore, for me, it is, okay, find something you love, because whatever you love, you will find a way of making money in it, hopefully. Whether it's as a business person or whether it is in a profession in your job, and you'll get ahead. So that's one important piece of advice, but do keep an eye on the money. But remember not to make the money soul destroying. I know many, many, many rich people with 2 houses and swimming pools and Aston Martins who are miserable in their marriages and miserable in their homes for all the obvious reasons that spent so much time making money that they didn't actually smell the roses and all the rest of it. And by the way, I too have made many a mistake in my 20s and 30s of only working and nothing else. So I would say follow what you truly love. And for me, law wasn't actually it in the end. It actually was finance. Although I wish I'd done human rights law, but that's a separate issue. So that was one thing with students. The other thing is learn to speak well. So learn oratory and rhetoric. Those ancient skills of the Romans and the Greeks. I am sure when I've said that, somebody is going to point out to me the Indian equivalent of rhetoric and oratory, and CB will undoubtedly know it, and who was the ancient teacher of oratory and rhetoric in India. And I should look it up, because there will be somebody, just as the Astra were written, the books of strategy were from India. There will be including military strategy, there will be something. But yes, I would say learn those skills and learn to write well as well. When I went to university, I was told to read How to Shoot an Elephant. Now, I'm vegetarian, so it was not a literal book. It's by George Orwell. It's a very small book. It's almost a pamphlet. How to Shoot an Elephant. And my tutor at university said to me, write like that. So when I wrote my Financial Times column, it was like that. Short, simple sentences. The communication comes through. Nothing extravagant, nothing flowery, nothing too woolly, just straight to the point, direct. So How to Shoot an Elephant by George Orwell, I'd recommend to young people and old. The other one I would say is thinking about thinking, logic. If you go on social media for even 5 minutes, you notice people are absolutely insane. And what's even more insane is the sane people become insane by arguing with the insane ones. So the book I'd recommend here is by Anthony Flew as in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And it's called Thinking About Thinking. And it's a very small book. And it'll just teach you a few tools for how to think clearly. It's not about arguing or debate, those kinds of things that you might learn in law school. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just about reason. And it'll save you a lot of time, because what'll happen is every time you go onto Twitter and you've got your keyboard ready and you're getting ready to sort of start a fight with somebody who's got 2 followers in the universe, you'll pause and you'll think, that guy's an idiot. Why should I waste my time? Because you can think and they can't. And you'll just move on and do something more useful instead. So yeah, thinking about thinking and How to Shoot an Elephant were probably the 2 most important. By the way, there's one more. Again, it was on my reading list at university before I went up. And it's one of the co-authors is Indian by coincidence, Avinash Dixit. And the book is called Thinking Strategically. Before I went on to my politics degree, I was told by my tutor, read Thinking Strategically. Now, remember, this is one of actually the #1 university in the world. And if they're telling you to read Thinking Strategically, you better read Thinking Strategically, because they're making prime ministers and presidents around the world. So that was my thinking. And it's about game theory, and just it interprets politics and economics and the world around us in game theory language, and it's very easy to read. It's a very good book. But I'd recommend those three. They won't take people more than an hour probably to get through the first two, and probably a couple of hours the second one. But they're well worth the investment, and they've saved me hours and hours, probably days, years of my life in terms of not going down the wrong routes. But yeah, that's sort of the top piece of advice I'd give.
Thank you so much, which is really important. My fourth question is, I think so it's related to your third question. You gave a speech at Eton School, and what advice there for young people?
Yes. So that was fascinating, because what had happened is, and that was 2 years ago now, they'd asked me to give a talk to their sixth form, and it was the same year I'd got invited to give 3 TED Talks, 3 in a year. You're lucky to get one. But I had 3. I could only do 2. One of the third one, I just couldn't fit into schedule. I think I was traveling or something. And I basically told them what I wish I'd known when I was 18, and what is still relevant today, that I'm a heck of a lot older than 18. I'm 52 now. And I should say I met CB when I was, so university, I would have been about 20. So 32 years. He hasn't aged, but I've aged, or he's aged me. I'm not sure which it is yet. But what had happened, what I said to the students at Eton, there were several things. One is, look beyond. I mean, some of these students are ridiculously wealthy. Their parents have intergenerational wealth. It's going to continue, generational wealth, and it's going to continue for many years. But what struck me were how confident they were without being obnoxious, how polite, how humble, how open to listening, how mature they were. I mean, decent young people. And actually, funnily enough, about a couple of weeks later, I read something where somebody was picking fun, somebody on one of the news channels, I think it was LBC, was sort of saying something negative about Eton and students who go there, because I think Boris Johnson had gone there and they wanted to attack Boris Johnson, so they attacked the school. And I said, well, do remember, these are 16, 17-year-olds, 14, 15-year-olds who are actually just normal kids. And you might think, oh, normal, their parents are rich. Yeah, but that's not their fault. So I was really struck by just what a wonderful, decent group of kids they were. But what I said to them was, well, first of all, my TED Talks were about, the title of my TED Talks were, If You're So Clever, Why Aren't You Rich? And I looked at the academic research between intelligence, wealth, and happiness. Because, of course, in our community, we talk about intelligence, we talk about education, and presumably people want a basic level of money to protect themselves from old age and do things that they want to do, and hopefully do seva for the broader community, and uplift not just the British Indian community. The great thing about the British Indian community I've noticed is we don't just donate to ourselves. We're actually one of the wealthiest communities there is. We do, of course, try and look after, whenever called to help, our own people. And I'm sure we could all, including myself, do more. But we also look after the population of which we are a part, the British population. And CB reminds me of this, because he often does say, he won't just say Jai Hind, he'll say Jai Britain. It sounds odd, even when CB says it or I say it, to say JUK, but it has a rhyme to it, JUK. But the point is that at the school, well, okay, why aren't clever people rich, and why aren't therefore rich people happy? And what it came down to was that, well, as you went, as I said earlier, beyond a certain level of money, if you were not using it for 2 main things, well, actually, no, there were 3 main things the academic research found. And I think that the author was James Hackman. I think he got the Nobel Prize in economics for this. There were 3 main things. If you didn't do these, you didn't get the happiness. So what's the point of having the money without the happiness? Okay. And there's many stories in Hindu scriptures about that, let alone in Greek literature, about having the money, let alone in the Bible, about having money but not having happiness. And the three things were, if you didn't spend it on experiences, which you might think, well, it's a bit superficial, but if you didn't actually enjoy the wealth, so you just hoarded it. I'm speaking to all my Shah friends now. I'm going to get so much flack for saying that. They know they can take a good joke. So if you did not spend it on experiences, secondly, if you didn't spend it on loved ones. So there was a circle, yourself, then there was the people around you, the family, and they found that the people who had the best experiences with family members, like going on holiday and so on, that improved their happiness. So the wealth only mattered for the ones who did that. What they found, sadly, was the people who became wealthier became more insular. They stopped doing those two things, which is perverse, because before you've got all the money, you say to yourself, oh, when I've got it, I'm going to treat my family to this, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. They stopped doing that. The third thing they found was giving it away. Now, I'm not saying this to make people donate to good causes. I'm saying this is what the research found. The ones who made those charitable donations, or even what we call random acts of kindness, not only were they happier, subsequent research found they lived longer. That's crazy. You know, unless, like me, you're quite religious and you think, well, actually, that does actually make sense in so many ways. But anyway, they lived longer and they were happier. So that was part of what I was trying to get across to the elite. You know, I did ask them, which one of you is going to be my prime minister in a few years? And no hands went up. But the point was, find that bigger purpose. There's another talk I gave once at one of the management consultancy firms. And I said, you know, you look at this phone made of glass, plastic, and metal, and people will queue 24 hours to get the latest one of that. But even more so, the staff at Apple will work 48 hours straight before a launch. And they will say it with pride. I just pulled 2 all-nighters to get this done. And there was a book called Drive, which studied that. It said, well, what was it that gave people that drive to aspire to something which is just metal, plastic, and glass? And why did they want to go beyond? How do you make people do incredible things? The army have got this perfected. They said you have to give them a sense of purpose, far bigger than themselves. So if you notice with Apple, there's a great website called All About Steve Jobs. In the early days, he talks about, oh, I want to create a device which I can listen to lots of music. Great, fine, yawn. 30 years later, he says, I want to create something which stores all your life's most treasured memories and is happiness wherever you go. Like, what? It's plastic, metal, and glass. What are you talking about? Happiness and memories, and you share it with your family. What are you talking about? It's a phone, for God's sake. No, it isn't. The same thing isn't. It is happiness. I mean, let me put it this way. How do you feel if you've misplaced your phone? How do you feel after 5 minutes? You feel you've lost a limb. You can't breathe like this. Anyway, the point is, whether that's right or wrong, finding a purpose for people, whether you're a leader in a company, a CEO, or a politician, giving them hope and a bigger purpose, that we are doing this for something more than just making more money and shuffling paper. That was critical to success. So I wanted these Eton students to focus on purpose in life. That was the first thing. The second thing was giving people a degree of autonomy, trusting them to get on with things as long as you gave them the skills with which to use that autonomy. Those were vital. A workplace where you give people purpose, autonomy, and allow them to use their skills is a company which is going to become a $2 trillion business and the biggest company in the world. That's what you call it. And that's been what I wanted to get across to them, because if these people are going to change the world, and it won't be just them, it'll be some of your viewers, or it'll be some of the grandparents here talking to their grandchildren and getting across to them that have that bigger purpose, but have the autonomy to do it and acquire the skills, whether it's in speaking or writing. And this newspaper is a classic example of that, because this newspaper is all about speaking and writing. That's what it's communications. It's what the newspaper is. With those, yes, you can then start changing the world for the better in whichever direction you want to, or you just start in that smaller circle. You'll change at least your family's outcome. And as they say, somebody will breathe easier because you planted a tree, somebody in the future. And that's the ultimate goal with it all. So that was the message really to them, was make sure you get that purpose so that you get the happiness. Don't just chase the money. And to get the happiness, you'll need to give your money away in large chunks. And since they had lots of it, I don't think they would have minded, hopefully.
Thank you, Alpesh. And my final question for you. How did you break into television on Bloomberg TV, co-host on CNBC, BBC, CNN?
Yeah. Do you know the funniest thing? So until I was 16, I was definitely the shyest boy at school. And I think I barely spoke to girls until I was 17. So people say, well, no, that can't be right. I see you on TV and you're having laughs and you're doing this and you're doing that. I was even in GQ magazine once. And I say to them, and I go on stage and all the rest of it. There were two parts to answering this, and it's again an important lesson for all the students watching this or younger people watching this. The first part was credit to a school teacher, as it often is. When I was 12, my headmaster insisted I did speech and drama. I did drama at school, acting, and that really helped. And especially if I was the stereotypical Gujarati boy, okay, which is, what the stereotypical Gujarati boy of 12 years is, sort of bit shy, head down, quiet. They're not all born like Sardar Patel from Garam Sad, I'm afraid. They are a bit quiet. I was very skinny. You can't guess that now. I ate that boy. That's why I'm a bit bigger now. But so acting, it's phenomenal. And of course, in our community, thankfully, we've got Dev Patel now. So acting's now, it's okay to be an actor. But obviously, back in the day, nobody said I want to be an actor. Despite the fact that Bollywood, we're happy to watch it, but you're not doing it. But so drama was phenomenal, speech and drama. And it's the best thing, for children. And that then meant that when I had to go on TV, I could just click my fingers and do an act. And I've got to confess to CB, all the times I've hosted Asian Voice events or any other events for anybody else, including for the UK government, I've had the privilege of hosting events from Beijing to Shanghai to Singapore, including in front of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. It's been an act. I've just acted confidently. I would far rather be at home in front of my Excel spreadsheets, quietly reading a book. But I was called upon to do it, so I did it. And I loved it, and I'm grateful, and it's a privilege. But that's not me. It's an act. And so when the TV interview happened, as I say, serendipity and chance, like the movie Forrest Gump, it was just so much luck. And I say to people, you've got to put yourself out in a position to be lucky by getting yourself a skill that people want, if it's finance, whatever it is, getting on a stage, and then you'll get asked to do more and more. And the more you get asked to do, somebody else notices it. It's a multiplier effect. If you're the one on stage and there's 200 people in the audience, 200 people are going to notice you. If you're the one in the audience, no one's going to notice you. And you might say, I don't want to be noticed. Well, whatever you're in, whether it's in a career you want, you need to be noticed. Whether you're a journalist, you need to be noticed. Whether you are in finance, you need to be noticed. And if you're in business, my God, you need to be noticed. Everywhere you need to be noticed, no matter what you're doing. Even if you're an academic, you need to raise money for your academic funding. So for me, I realized I needed to get noticed. And then there was the luck element that I was asked, would you like your own show? But I guess to begin with, I was good at communicating finance. And if you have a skill which others don't, then it'll be an advantage. So develop communication skills, as I keep saying, the ability to communicate well verbally and in writing. And the best ways to do that, for me, I used to practice speeches, not even in the mirror, just read them out as if I was that character. And there was a book, I can't remember, it was like 100 Greatest Speeches in History, something like that. Now you can get it on the internet. But practicing that, not for any particular reason other than maybe one day it'll be useful. But yeah, I would certainly advise on that for young people. And with Rian, I go around with him, my son, I go around with him with a camera. I say, come on, Rian, we need to do a YouTube channel called Rian's World. And Rian, why should you invest in the stock market? And occasionally he'll look up from his crowns and go, because daddy, then you can buy more trains. And then he'll go back down. I go, Rian, look at Bloomberg. Look, what does it mean if it's red? He goes, oh, it means Rian's got no money, daddy. So I'm hopefully not creating a monster. I'm creating somebody who will have a multitude of skills that he can then have the freedom to use in whichever way he wants. But he will remember his society and his community, and that he is ridiculously lucky and privileged. And therefore, the first thing he'll know is to make sure he looks after the broader community as well. And he has the obligation to people he's not even blood related to. But in order to be in that position, he will first need a bunch of skills. And that's how I got into the TV, having those skills which were wanted on the BBC. And training as a barrister helps because they give you a ton of papers and they say you've got 15 minutes to go into court. You've got to make an argument, analyze the documents, make a coherent argument, which is persuasive. And that's what TV is. So practicing those kinds of things, you don't know when you're going to use them. But my God, you're going to use them in the boardroom. You're going to use them in your job. You're going to use it everywhere. And it's worth having that skill without knowing when you're going to use it, so that when the opportunity comes along, because they say success is opportunity meeting preparation. So being prepared for whenever opportunity comes, you'll be prepared. So then you end up with whatever you define success as. For me, I defined it in certain ways. You described my biography, which to me was my definition of success. But for other people, it'd be like, seems boring, or I'm not sure about that. But it's a personal thing in any event at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for the inspiring and motivated answers. Now I'm opening for our audience, our viewers, if they have any questions about their career, about the pension, so they are more than welcome to ask. So has anybody want to ask,
Okay. I think, thank you, Pooja. First thing, Soneri Sangat, which is, I think I'm attending first episode. CB Patel is our patron in National Council of Gujarati Organization, Alpesh. Fantastic things he does do there, but it's really good to attend today, Soneri Sangat. And especially Asian Voice and Gujarat Samachar, CB, thank you. Alpesh Patel Bhai, OBE itself shows your work really. It is something, only reading that puts me that as a responsible person, that is not easy to achieve. So that is really a remarkable introduction itself for me as a president of NCGO. Pooja Ben, fantastic work you're doing. Again, Ganesh and Krishna, I saw Alpesh Bhai, and I strongly believe that the good luck and religious thing it does help to create the good people, because good thinking creates the good people, and the religious is something which leads you towards it. For me, some of the book you have said I have written down. If I get opportunity, surely would read. Again, 3 things: experience, loved one, and donation. To get happiness is important. That was fantastic. Again, one of the things which you said about the company, and I have noticed, I'm in a retail business myself, Alpesh Bhai. Purpose for the staff to find so they can really expand skill and anatomy. That will help in my business. But if I come to the main thing, what I want to ask is, I use the interactive investor recently, very little, not much really. And I do try to understand few things on investment. And so on the stock market, what should I look as immature investor? Absolutely. I never trusted stock, but I'm trying to go in there, and I got opportunity to ask you this question. So if you can help me there, what should I be looking to give me a confidence?
Yeah.
That is a different investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your kind words as well. The funny thing about the OBE is I sometimes get asked by people, "Wait a minute, that's British Empire. Why have you got that?" And I said, "I know my passport says British as well. It's conflicting." But thank you. I'm very privileged to have had it and awarded. In terms of investing, so there's two quick ways. I mean, the first book I wrote was now coming up to 30 years ago. Can you believe it? So it's been something which has been a passion to teach people. So I created a whole load of free resources, free education. Now, education is longer term. So I'll give you a short-term answer in a second as well. They're on alpeshpatel.com/links. If you see so alpeshpatel.com/links, and you can even download a free copy of my book on investing there, and all the resources on there. There's a lot of free resources, educational, the books and everything else. Because that just carries on my work of making sure people, well, it does two things: making sure people get educated, but also that I stay relevant. Because as you get older, one of the things you want to do, one purpose you want, is to stay relevant. So by giving the book away free and so on, it keeps it relevant. So that's the longer term answer, is the education part. The easy answer is one that Warren Buffett gave, that for most private investors, who won't necessarily have the skills of picking an individual stock. Like, I was at the Foreign Office just now, and I said to a couple of people there, and they asked me the exact same thing you did. And I said, well, if you don't want to buy Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, for argument's sake, which are three stocks I've owned for the last few years, on and off most of the time, but most of the time I've owned them 90% of the time in the last 8 years. Okay. But you don't want to do that because you think, oh, individual stock could be risky, and it's true, it can be. Then probably something which just tracks the S&P 500, so the 500 largest American companies, and it's called an S&P 500 index tracker. And that's what Warren Buffett says most private investors should probably do. Now, the only warning with that is even tracking the 500 largest American companies, whilst that would have seen you get a 25% return last year, the year before, it dropped 20%. But the year before that, I think it was up about another 20%. So it was up 20, down 20, up 25. So generally does rather good. Long-term, on average, does about 12% per annum returns. But I give that simple answer because, well, first of all, it's the one Warren Buffett gives, and it is a good one because it's a bet on America. It's a bet that the Americans will continue innovating new things, whether it's AI or nuclear fusion or and I think that's going to be the next thing they'll probably do at some stage, will be nuclear fusion, and that'll remove carbon from the air. And then we'll have the other problem. There isn't enough carbon in the air, but they'll come up with things. But yeah, that's probably the way I'd go. Now, some people might say, well, what about India? But then it becomes country specific and you're taking more risk. And I always put aside personal loyalties to a nation, whether it's UK or India, and just look at, well, wait a minute, I've got a job to do. I've got to be professional. And professionally, that'd be the easiest answer, is an index tracker with the S&P 500. But like I said, I personally, most of the time, own Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, and Apple. I forgot Apple. And they've pretty much been a one-way bet for a very long period of time. But just be careful with how much they can fall in a bad year like 2022. But out of 7 years, they're up 5 of those 7 years.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing amazing today. My name is Shardul Dave. I am currently pursuing Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration and Mathematical Business Economics at Copenhagen Business School. So my first question to you, sir, is, so based on your experiences and observations, what emerging trends do you believe will have the most significant impact on the global markets over the next decade?
There's two ways I'm going to answer that. One is, if I'm on the BBC and we do the newspaper review early in the morning, and they ask me, what's your view on XYZ, then like any other relatively intelligent person, I can talk about something or other without being an expert in any of the things I'm going to talk to you about. So I could say to you the big trend is going to be, like I said, nuclear fusion, for instance. Do I know for sure? No. Obviously, AI. I could repeat all the things you already know. I don't think I've got any special insight beyond some of the reports I've put on my website from the big banks. I've had a tendency from a very young age to always defer to people who are incredibly hardworking and clever. So if I've got some reports from Nobel Prize winners or from Goldman Sachs who've done big, then I'll just refer you to those and say, well, this is what they say. I won't sort of pretend to be clever and say, well, let me tell you what's going to happen. I think sort of my cleverness has been that I know where to find the information that other people have collated. So I would say I've put reports, I think, on my LinkedIn as well, of some of the big emerging trends that the big banks have said. And I can't do any better than that because they've done the work. So why would I duplicate that? So that's one way I could answer it. The other way I'd answer it is this. In my day job, in terms of investments, I'm not actually looking to forecast the future, contrary to what people think. They think my job is to work out where the future is going to be and take a bet on it and then make money from it. It's not. My job is simply to look at what's happened and ride the coattails of those companies. So it's a bit like if you hire a staff in your let's say you're running a company and you hire somebody and you look at their CV and you say, well, he's always had a good, consistent track record. So let's bet on him. In the future, he'll also do well. That's what I do. What I don't do is say, let me blindly take some random person from the audience and try and predict, because they're tall, they're going to be really good at high jumps. You know, that's what people think I do in investing. I don't. I just look at what they did in the past. And so what I would say is, what do I think are going to be the big sort of innovation in the future? I just follow the trends forward. Of course, India will be important. But if you're looking at business, one of the things that I would say is, and I've discovered this the hard way, it is actually a bit better to make your life easier than harder. And one way to make it easier is to follow the money. And one way to follow the money is just say, okay, which areas have the most money swimming around? And finance has the most money swimming around. So anything around finance, I'd go for. It's a heck of a lot easier when I speak to young people who are looking for jobs to apply for a job at a company which has just raised a load of money. You read the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal, it says XYZ has just raised 500 million pounds from investors. Better apply to them than apply to a young startup and then hope that they're going to still keep you employed in a week. And you might say, no, you learn a lot more from your failures. I'd say, yeah, that's fine. But banging your head against a wall isn't exactly going to necessarily mean that you get a better shaped head. So, yeah, I'd follow the money on that one and follow the trends and see where the money's going, which is no greater insight. How would you find out where the money's going than just reading the papers and seeing, well, who's getting the most funds? It makes life a heck of a lot easier.
Yes, thank you so much. Another question I had to you was, so as a young trader, what do you think I should really prioritize to effectively build a long-term career in trading?
So I'd say differentiate trading from investing. Trading is buying and selling, maybe holding for a few hours or weeks. Investing is holding for 12 months. The best place, again, I'm going to send you to my website, alpeshpatel.com/links. On there, you'll see a free course on trading, and you'll discover that trading is difficult. It's an acquired skill. It takes time, energy, and effort. And maybe the best lesson you'll come away with is, actually, I don't want to be a trader. Okay, a bit like entrepreneurship. CB will tell you how difficult building a business and running a business is. Of course, he had to do it. That's his calling, his destiny. But you and I are not CB Patels. We ought not to do it. And so what I'd say, similarly with trading, just because I do it doesn't mean, and because other people do it, doesn't mean it's easy and we should do it. So when you have a look at that, you might come away with, well, actually, yeah, this is a bit difficult. I don't necessarily want to do it. I don't want to put you off, but I'm just saying it's like entrepreneurship. It is difficult. It's not easy. Investing is a heck of a lot easier. And on there, you'll also see a free investing course with the free books. And you might say, oh, actually, you know what? I like this more than this. So you're trying things out like ice cream flavors. You're trying different things, and it's a good time to do it when you're young and saying, well, actually, I didn't realize I'd like, pistachio with blue cheese, but I really like that flavor. So I'd say try those different things out, and have a look at the site, and it'll give you some good indicators on whether or not it's for you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was my question.
Hello, Mr. Patel.
Hi.
To start off, I'd just like to thank ABPL for organizing this event, and the opportunity to be able to speak to you and have my questions answered is brilliant. To introduce myself, I'm Yax. I'm a first year economics undergrad at the University of Warwick. I'm looking to aspire within a career within the finance industry, asset management to be specific. And when Mum told me about this event that's going on, I was quick to jump onto your LinkedIn profile and see what it is that you do. And in your bio, the main thing is asset management CEO. And that was that. So my questions will be based around sort of asset management and so on and so forth. So my first question to you would be, with the current UK market, and with the banks sort of looking to showing trends to monetary tightening and constriction, what sort of trends do you see, especially within the asset management sort of private equity industry? What sort of trends do you see going forward? What sort of sectors do you see becoming more popular for firms to invest into? And what sort of sectors do you see booming in the future?
Well, I'm leaving, which might give you a clue. Let me put some more detail to that. Increasingly in asset management, and it's been a trend for a while, and it was fine when I started, but increasingly in asset management, about 80 to 90% of the money is held by about 10% of the companies. And I wouldn't want to set up a new fund. When I first set up my first one in 2004, I hated fundraising. I went to friends and family. I didn't have a rich family, so I went to friends who, luckily, I had quite a few rich friends. And they invested, and then we got some pension fund money, and it was a lot of early morning flights to Geneva and Luxembourg and all of this, and I hated it, all of that. So what I would say is be definitely sure you do want to do it. And if you do, then the advice I give people is start at the top and work your way down. Okay, not start at the bottom and work your way up. Start at the top, work your way down. By that, I mean start applying to the biggest names and make the applications. And don't complain until you've got 100 rejections, because that's how many I had in my pocket when I was applying for anything. And if you haven't got those, then you've not even started or tried. And if it doesn't work out, that the industry doesn't want you for whatever reason, so be it. Go look for something else. Have plan B, C, and D. So asset management goes into quite a lot of different areas. There's fintech, and I'd follow, again, the money. There's venture capital. That's asset management. There's private equity. There's investment banking. There's wealth management. So you've got all of those areas, and then you've got globality. You could be in, it's probably going to be easier getting into Deutsche Bank India. Well, maybe it used to be, maybe not now. Then it might be Deutsche Bank Germany, but times have changed. But yeah, looking at different parts of the world, if you've got the ability to be in different parts of the world, there's a fantastic website. I think it's called 80,000 Hours. And I say to students, have a look at this. It's out of your Oxford University. I'll just look it up. I think it's called 80,000 Hours. Now, they created this website. Yeah, how to make a difference with your career. What they do is they find jobs around the world which make the most impact, but will pay you enough. Okay, so these might be jobs at the United Nations, at the World Bank, at the IMF. They will have, there's one here in the UK. Okay, listen to where this is at. Advanced Research and Invention Agency. That exists. Now, can you imagine saying, well, I work at the Advanced Research and Invention Agency, and they want, in this case, a climate science specialist, but there'll be others where it'll be in an area which fits you. But yeah, it's called 8,000 hours. There's a free book that goes with it and career guide. What it works out is what are the world's most pressing problems, and then you might say, well, actually, and by the way, these are the areas it finds careers in: artificial intelligence, catastrophic pandemics, nuclear war, great power war, climate change. It's working in those areas to say, right, which are the jobs in these and how do you get into them? So they've got everything from space governance to improving government. Again, UN is one area, and so on, and working within governments. So I'd say, do look at finance. You might end up looking at the treasury. My cousin is CEO at some massive financial company, Swift, and I think it's Swift. He's going to kill me for not remembering where he's CEO. No, it's not Swift. It's somewhere else. He was at anyway, and he started off at the treasury. So there are other routes into finance. Obviously, start applying to Goldman Sachs and everybody else. Let me just find out where he is. Another one also started out, Clear, it's the Chicago Board Options Exchange. So he's president of Chicago Board Options Exchange for Europe. And he was at the Treasury. Another one was at the Treasury, and he's now a partner at Deloitte. So I think mix what you're going to enjoy with keeping your options wide enough open that it's not just, oh, I want to go into, say, asset management, especially if asset management is declining. My secretary, she joined me when she was 21. She was a part-time opera singer. She worked for me as my secretary for 2 years, and then she joined Newton Asset Management, and she now manages about $10 billion at Polar Capital. So there are many routes in. I'm not suggesting you become my secretary, but to help you manage $10 billion. But yeah, you don't necessarily need the conventional routes in either. So there's that other side as well. So think about all those firms. Those are growing. Fidelity is growing. Vanguard's growing. So look at all those. But yeah, I'd cast the net wide and make lots of applications, I'm afraid. I mean, thank God. One of the things I'm glad about is, one, I don't have to sit an exam ever again in my life. And two, I don't ever need to fill in an application ever again in my life. I think those are the two things. Then everything else in life is fine.
Yeah, no, for sure. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So really quickly, sort of going back to sort of the asset management. So when you first set up your first fund, what sort of challenges did you face? And sort of, you said, obviously you went to immediate family or friends of friends, and so on and so forth, to secure funds. What sort of challenges did you face, and what sort of motivated you or person?
In setting up any business, and CB will tell you the same, you need 3 categories of people to help you: friends, family, or fools. Okay, strangers won't give you money. Friends, family, or fools. And if you haven't got rich friends or rich family or rich fools, I don't know how you do it. Okay, I don't know if you haven't got one of those 3 categories. So what motivated me was I couldn't get a job doing anything else anyway. But it was because I wanted my own asset management company. I was wrong to want that because it became a prison. The whole point of becoming a barrister was I wanted freedom and independence to do what I want. As CB knows, barristers are self-employed. I can work when I want, do what I want. By foolishly setting up a company, I ended up becoming my own prisoner, because now I've got staff. Again, CB will know, you've got obligations, responsibilities, you've got payroll, you've got investors, you've now got people you're answerable to. So basically, I went back to the thing I didn't want to be, which was a worker. So I wouldn't recommend it unless you've got this deep driving desire to be a glorified worker. But that's what a asset manager is. So the way I describe it is I'm a glorified plumber for rich people. So I hire a plumber. I could learn plumbing. I could just look on YouTube and plumb. But my billionaire clients hire me to do the plumbing. They could do it themselves, but they say, no, we're too rich on our yachts. You do it for me. That's all it is. I'm a glorified plumber. So that's what motivated me was, oh, I think I want this. It looks nice. It's important. I had a mentor whose father was chairman of the London Metal Exchange. And he said, you should have a company. This is going back to 2004. And I thought, okay, all right. And then I did it. And I hated I wouldn't say every minute. There was fun. There was a lot of extravagance and fun, but no, I far enjoy what I do now in terms of my government work and teaching people about how to improve their investing. But yeah, that's the sort of long answer to how I got into it and why I did it.
Right. No, thank you so much. So I appreciate your time today. Just really quickly like to thank CB on call as well. Thank you so much for organizing this. And yeah, no, thank you so much.
Thank you. Right. Now I would like to invite our bureau chief from India, Mr. Nilesh Bhai Parmar, who will update us with our weekly news headlines. So Nilesh Bhai, please, you can take it over. Thank you.
Thank you, પૂજાબેન. વતનના વાવડ વતનની ભાષામાં રજૂ કરતા ગુજરાત સમાચારના કાર્યક્રમમાં આપનું સ્વાગત છે. આજના મુખ્ય સમાચાર. અમેરિકા સ્થિત ભારતવંશી ટેકનોક્રેટ સામ પિત્રોડાએ ઇન્ડિયન ઓવરસીઝ કોંગ્રેસના અધ્યક્ષ પદેથી રાજીનામું આપ્યું છે. ઉલ્લેખનીય છે કે પિત્રોડાએ દક્ષિણ ભારતના લોકોને, આફ્રિકન અને પૂર્વ ભારતના લોકોને ચીની જેવા ગણાવતું નિવેદન કર્યા બાદ ભારતમાં વિવાદનો વંટોળ ઉઠ્યો હતો અને વિપક્ષે કોંગ્રેસ પર ટીકાની ઝડી વરસાવી. ભારતમાં લોકસભા ચૂંટણી માટે ચાલતા પ્રચારમાં અદાણી અંબાણી પરિવાર ફરી ચમક્યા છે. આ વખતે વડાપ્રધાન નરેન્દ્ર મોદીએ સવાલ કર્યો છે કે એવો તે કેવો સોદો થયો છે કે રાહુલ ગાંધીએ આ ઉદ્યોગપતિઓને ગાળો દેવાનું બંધ કરી દીધું છે. શું તેઓને ટેમ્પો ભરીને નાણાં મળ્યા છે? આના જવાબમાં રાહુલ ગાંધીએ વડાપ્રધાનને ઈડી દ્વારા તપાસ કરાવવાનો પડકાર ફેંક્યો છે. અમેરિકામાં ગેરકાયદે ઘૂસવાનો પ્રયાસ કરતા 175 ભારતીયોને જમૈકાના કિંગસ્ટન એરપોર્ટ પર ડિટેન કરાયા છે. ભારતીય પ્રવાસીઓમાં મોટાભાગના ગુજરાતી અને પંજાબી છે. કુલ 235 પ્રવાસીઓ સાથેની આ ફ્લાઇટ દુબઈથી ઇજિપ્ત થઈને જમૈકા પહોંચી છે ત્યારે તેને ડિટેન કરાય છે. મુંબઈ શેર બજારમાં 7 દિવસમાં બીજો તોતિંગ કડાકો નોંધાયો છે. આજે ગુરુવારે બીએસઈ સેન્સેક્સ 1062 પોઈન્ટ જ્યારે નિફ્ટી 345 પોઈન્ટ ઘટીને બંધ રહ્યા છે. શેર બજારના ઘટાડાથી રોકાણકારોને 7.6 લાખ કરોડ રૂપિયાનું નુકસાન થયું છે. આજે સૌથી વધુ વધનારા ટોપ 5 શેરમાં હીરો મોટોકોર, ટાટા મોટર્સ, મહિન્દ્રા એન્ડ મહિન્દ્રા, બજાજ ઓટો અને એસબીઆઈનો સમાવેશ થાય છે. જ્યારે સૌથી વધુ ઘટનારા શેરમાં એલએનટી, એશિયન પેઇન્ટ, બીપીસીએલ, કોલ ઇન્ડિયા અને ઓએનજીસી સામેલ છે. હવે એક નજર આ સપ્તાહના ગુજરાત સમાચારમાં પ્રકાશિત સમાચારો પર. બ્રિટનમાં સંસદની ચૂંટણી પૂર્વે યોજાયેલી કાઉન્સિલ અને મેયરોની ચૂંટણીમાં શાસક કન્ઝર્વેટિવ્સને ઐતિહાસિક પરાજયનો સામનો કરવો પડ્યો છે. 107 કાઉન્સિલમાં યોજાયેલી ચૂંટણીઓમાં 51 કાઉન્સિલમાં લેબર પાર્ટીનો જ્યારે 12 કાઉન્સિલમાં લિબરલ ડેમોક્રેટનો વિજય થયો છે. શાસક કન્ઝર્વેટિવ પાર્ટીનો માત્ર 6 કાઉન્સિલમાં વિજય થયો. આમ કન્ઝર્વેટિવ પાર્ટીએ 10 કાઉન્સિલ ગુમાવી છે તો લેબર પાર્ટીને 10 કાઉન્સિલનો ફાયદો થયો છે. લંડનના મેયર પદે સાદિક ખાન ઐતિહાસિક ત્રીજી ટર્મ માટે ચૂંટાયા છે. લંડન એસેમ્બલીની વાત કરીએ તો અહીં 25માંથી 11 બેઠકો પર જીતીને લેબર પાર્ટીએ દબદબો જાળવ્યો છે. વિજેતા ઉમેદવારોમાં 2 ગુજરાતી नेताओનો પણ સમાવેશ થાય છે, જેમાં સિટી એન્ડ ઈસ્ટ મત વિસ્તારમાંથી ઉન્મેષ દેસાઈ અને બ્રેન્ટ એન્ડ હેરો એસેમ્બલી સીટ પર રૂપેશ ઈરાણીનો સમાવેશ થાય છે. ઉન્મેષ દેસાઈએ કન્ઝર્વેટિવ પાર્ટીના ફ્રેડી ડાઉનિંગને જ્યારે રૂપેશ ઈરાણીએ સ્ટીફન બ્યુકોવિનિનલને જંગી સરસાઈ સાથે હરાવ્યો છે. કાઉન્સિલ અને મેયરની ચૂંટણીઓમાં ભલે કન્ઝર્વેટિવ્સનો પરાજય થયો હોય પણ વડાપ્રધાન ઋષિ સુનાક બીજી ટર્મ માટે આશાવાદી છે. સુનાકના મતે બ્રિટન ત્રિશંકુ સંસદ તરફ આગળ વધી રહ્યો છે. વડાપ્રધાને સ્વીકાર્યું હતું કે ચૂંટણી પરિણામો પક્ષને હતાશ કરનારા છે અને આગામી સંસદીય ચૂંટણીમાં પક્ષ બહુમતી ગુમાવી શકે છે. પરંતુ મતદારો નાના પક્ષોના ટેકાથી આગળ આવેલી લેબર પાર્ટીને 10 ડાઉનિંગ સ્ટ્રીટમાં જોવા ઈચ્છતા નથી. અમારી પાર્ટી પાસે જ વચનોનું પાલન કરવાની યોજના છે તેવું સુનાકનું માનવું છે. બ્રિટનમાં કાઉન્સિલની ચૂંટણી યોજાઈ ગઈ તો ગુજરાતમાં મંગળવારે લોકસભાની 25 બેઠકો માટે મતદાન. ગુજરાતના મતદારોએ 25 બેઠકો પર સરેરાશ 60.13% મતદાન કર્યું છે, જે 2019ની ગત ચૂંટણી કરતા 5% ઓછું છે. સૌથી વધુ 72.7% મતદાન વલસાડમાં નોંધાયું છે, જ્યારે સૌથી ઓછું 50.29% મતદાન અમરેલી બેઠક પર થયું છે. હવે જોવાનું એ છે કે ભાજપ સતત ત્રીજી વખત તમામ બેઠકો જીતીને ઇતિહાસ રચે છે કે પછી કોંગ્રેસ અને આમ આદમીની યુતિ ભાજપના ગઢમાં ગાબડું પાડવામાં સફળ રહે છે. હાલ મિડલ ઇસ્ટમાં ચાલી રહેલા યુદ્ધના કારણે મુશ્કેલીનો સામનો કરી રહેલા ભારતીય શિપિંગ ઉદ્યોગ માટે સારા સમાચાર છે. ભારત સરકારે કચ્છની સાથે સાથે ભારતીય માલ સામાનને વેગ મળે અને યુદ્ધ તથા અશાંતિ ધરાવતા રેડ સીને બાયપાસ કરવા માટે ઓમાન સરકાર સાથે વેપાર સંધિ કરવા ચક્રો ગતિમાન કર્યા છે. આ સંધિ બાદ ભારતીય માલ સામાન શાંત વિસ્તારોને બાયપાસ કરીને છેક પશ્ચિમ એશિયા સુધી પહોંચાડી શકશે. વર્ષ 2001માં ગુજરાતના સહકારી ક્ષેત્રે હલચલ મચાવી દેનાર માધવપુરા મર્કેન્ટાઇલ કોઓપરેટિવ બેંક કૌભાંડમાં 23 વર્ષના લાંબા અરસા બાદ 3 આરોપીઓ સામે અમદાવાદની સીબીઆઈ કોર્ટમાં ચાર્જશીટ ફાઇલ થયું છે. 1000 કરોડ રૂપિયાથી વધુના આ ચર્ચાસ્પદ કૌભાંડ જેમની સામે આરોપનામું રજૂ થયું છે, તેમાં કેતન પારેખ, તત્કાલીન મેનેજિંગ ડિરેક્ટર દેવેન્દ્ર પટિયા અને તેમના ભાઈ જગદીશનો સમાવેશ થાય છે. આ કૌભાંડથી અંદાજે 50,000 થાપણદારો રૂપિયા 1000 કરોડથી વધુ ડૂબ્યા છે. આજે બસ આટલું જ. નમસ્તે. થેન્ક યુ.
Thank you so much, Nilesh Bhai. Now I would like to invite our editor, Mahesh Bhai Liloria, to do the vote of thanks. Mahesh Bhai, please, over to you.
Thank you, Pooja. I want to thank and express my gratitude to us, Alpesh Bhai. Alpesh Bhai, thank you so much for giving valuable time and valuable knowledge and sharing so much interesting things and valuable things. You started from Ganesh, Krishna, and took all of us on a bicycle ride. And then you told the relation between the money and happiness, how we can have money and happiness together. That is the most important thing. So these are the thing, and you basically you told about the ecosystem and mutual connection between the intelligence, wealth, and happiness, which is most important thing. And the another thing which I like most, whatever you told, that whatever you love, you will find a way. So it's so inspiring. So and the other thing was, you told that not make money which destroys your soul. It's very important. And the other thing which will inspire our youngsters, if you are in the audience, nobody is going to notice you. So be noticeable. These are all interesting things, and we never think about it in normal ways. So Alpesh Bhai, thank you very much. And as you told, the newspapers, the effort of CB sir, the newspapers are not just for printing the news and giving information. They are the campaign runners. They are to bring change in the society, in the community. So thank you, CB sir, for inspiring us, being our role model, and always like this. Soneri Sangat is also a brainchild of CB sir, and he insisted that we have to have a platform so that we could do a documentation of such an important or valuable things or valuable views. So this Soneri Sangat is the best document, and we can have it. It is useful for the audience who are present here, and it is useful for the audience who will be listening afterwards on YouTube and other social media platforms as well. So thank you so much. Thank you, Maya Ben, for presenting the Bhajan Stuti. Thank you, Pooja Ben, for comparing the whole event so nicely. And thank you, Vimalji Bhai, for asking the question, and the youngster Shardul and Yaksh. So we need youngster, we need to involve youngster. Thank you so much. And thank you, Nilesh Bhai, for having a round to the news of the whole week. And thank you, Shrijit Bhai, for organizing the whole or the all technical things and the event. So basically, the audience all present here and who are going to watch on the YouTube and social media, as I told earlier, it's not just a discussion for 1 or 1.5 hours. It's a document forever. So as our routine, the next Thursday on 16th of May, there will be a discussion on immigration, and our consultant, our guide, our mentor, Mr. Kantibai Nagda, MBE, will be there to throw more light on the immigration problems and issues. So don't forget to join on next Thursday, 16th of May, 3 p.m. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.